Hey, it's Michael Bishop here from OnGrid Solar. Just wanted to talk you through the basics of the new pricing sheet. Made some pretty big updates here. The biggest update is now, by default, whenever you save customer data, everything that you have on the main table on the pricing sheet is going to be preserved exactly with that customer, so that when you load the customer up tomorrow or next month or next year, it's going to show you exactly what you had on the table for that customer when it was saved. So I could go through here and I could enter in my specific module pricing at that time for that customer. I could enter it in right here in row 10, whatever it happens to be. I could say, okay, the disconnect at this time is actually 125. Whatever I have here, save customer data, and that's going to load up $1.20 for the module and $125 per unit for the DC disconnect and whatnot. So that is the really big update, and that everything that saves the customer is starting in row 10 all the way down the entire table, all the way down to row 95, including this new 3-row section that I'll talk about in a minute. It does not, the adders down here do not save with the customer, but on the input sheet, whatever the total adders are, that will load exactly as it was when the customer was saved. So even if these defaults change over here, if these defaults get a different adder total than when the customer was saved, it'll give you the option to load the original total adder amount. So long story short, now your pricing, total pricing can be preserved perfectly for that customer later on. A couple of other big updates that we've made on the pricing sheet is now I can insert rows and remove rows really easily, or insert lines, and that way it just gives me a lot more flexibility on designing my own pricing in here, designing my own pricing table, my own pricing setup. So the little pluses in column Q, insert lines, the little minuses, delete lines wherever I click that link. And apart from that, I had overridden 125, I wrote this in directly, so now, as of the latest OnGrid Tool version 5.4 and later, I can see this dot here that means that the default has been overridden. Clicking that dot will get me back to the original default. Now what we're looking at right here is the OnGrid defaults. I can override this with my own custom defaults. Every time I open the OnGrid tool or reset the OnGrid tool or whatnot, it's going to have my custom defaults. The same logic as on the input sheet, where I can set up my own custom defaults. So if I wanted to set this stuff as my custom defaults, whereas before version 5.4 I would just save user data and then it would all get locked in. Now it's a little bit smarter. There's an extra link up here in row 6 that says make current pricing the defaults, and just like on the input sheet, by clicking this link it's going to lock whatever I have in here as my defaults for all new customers. So I might want to, I can either start revising what's already in here, or I can just build in my own pricing from scratch. For the latter, I'd click on Clear Main Pricing Table. Main Pricing Table has been cleared. And then from here, I can do whatever, I can type in whatever inputs I'd like. So here's my new section number 1. And I indicated that's a subsection heading by doing it in all caps. And this functionality was here before version 5.4, but I can say here maybe wiring cost, and this is setting up my default. Maybe I have no idea what wiring costs are, but maybe it's, let's say it's 5 cents a watt. So that's that. Or if I wanted to base it on per unit, and I knew that I was going to need 2 spools at 200 each, I could set it up that way, or I can say total is going to be 300 total wiring. Whatever I want to do here, I just double click to make that the basis. Now if I wanted to say section 2 for labor, for example, and whatever I do there, I can say, okay, my typical is going to be, or actually I'm going to do this over here for labor, columns J through M is labor. I can say it's going to be $30, and maybe it's going to be, I don't know, 20 hours. So anyhow, now that I have a starting point for my new defaults, I'm going to click on Make Current Pricing the Defaults, and then I'll click Yes. Now that is locked in, so if I were to reset the input sheet, or rather I go back to the inputs and click Reset Inputs, it's also going to reset my pricing sheet back to whatever my defaults are. So it's going to have that wiring cost line and the labor lead line. So now, if I wanted to change this for a particular customer, like let's say there's an extra long wiring run, and I wanted to say in this case it's going to be 5 cents for this customer, then that's where I can save this customer, and it's going to be preserved as 5 cents for that customer, even though when I start a new customer it's going to be the default of 3 cents. Another thing I like about the pricing sheet now is that you have this summary pane up here, so you can see how big of an effect it's going to be as you're working on your pricing on the IRR. So let's say that I've been living under a rock and I'm still paying $4 a watt for my modules. Well, in this case, still a pretty decent deal just because I don't have hardly any other costs in here, but it's 27.4, dropped down from, if I were to reset it by clicking this dot, back to the default from the form, it's back to $1.31 and 58% IRR in my hypothetical case. So that's that. Getting down to the 3-row section, I'm going to clean this up a little bit by putting in 30 as the number of visible lines right here, so I don't have all this extra blank stuff that I'm not ready to do anything with yet. Right here, I can say company overhead. Now before it was kind of awkward, at least for some companies, to account for things like overhead and profit on the pricing sheet, because overhead is often factored in as a percentage of all the other costs, including and also profit and especially sales commission. So now at these 3 lines down here, I can say, okay, 5%. Company overhead is 5% of everything up here. And that gets me a total of $944. I can say right here, company profit. I can say sales commission, or I can type in whatever I'd like here. Maybe this is also 5%, maybe sales commission is 6%. So there I have that, getting me my total. As with versions before 5.4, if I want to indicate that something, I'm going to be paying sales tax separately for something like wiring, I can say S right here, or rather, I'm purchasing this wholesale and then going to be passing on the sales tax in addition to this wholesale cost to the customer. I clicked on S to indicate that this is a taxable sale. All of the sales tax, just like in before version 5.4, all of that is down below. I can see a review of that. I can click on ST up here in row 6 to get down there and see, okay, $990 for the sales tax on the modules, about $250 for the inverters, and for the wiring, $38. And then I'll see the total of that sales tax right here in row 97. I think I've covered the big new updates. Only other pretty minor thing is now if I override by enter the base cost directly on the input sheet, it's going to yell at me pretty loud with this bright magenta color. But if you're used to just entering in your cost per watt directly and you'd prefer to do that, then you can just disregard the magenta. It's just drawing your attention to the fact that this has been overridden. This connection with the main pricing table has been overridden. So by entering in something directly here, everything on this table is going to be completely ignored. Now, if I want to get back to referring to the table, I can click the dot. That gets me back. If I wanted to see the base cost breakdown, I just click on Show Base Cost Breakdown right here, and I can see, okay, really quickly, what is the cost for the modules? What about inverters? What about balance of system? Right now, including that wiring and labor. What about the 3 lines, including overhead? Most likely, you'd include overhead there, and sales tax. So show me my total. And this is per STC watt on the pricing sheet. If I wanted to use STC here, then this would match this. That's that. Definitely let me know if any of this doesn't make sense, or let anyone at OnGrid know during our Tuesday, Friday conference calls, or give us a call directly, and we'll make sure that it makes sense to you. But hopefully now it's going to make more sense for you to build in your pricing system into the OnGrid tool. And one more thing I should mention is that another fairly new feature we have is a share file. And with a share file, once you built in your pricing system, you can easily get this over to colleagues. If I go to the settings and support sheet, and up at the top of the settings and support sheet, I click create user data share file in row 30, I'm going to have all the things that I can transfer over, including, in the case of pricing, I would want to do my main pricing table defaults and adders, and probably want to get my modules and inverters over as well that include the unit-specific pricing defaults that are entered in through that form at the top of the pricing sheet. And then click on Create Share File, and then I can save this to my computer and email it over, put it on a local drive or put it on a thumb drive or whatnot, and get it over to my colleagues. Then they would click Load from Share File to load your pricing setup into their OnGrid tool copy, so that everybody is working with the same pricing setup. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye. Hey, one more quick thing to mention is if you would prefer to always load your default pricing when you load a customer, have your latest default pricing in there, even if you originally put out a quote with different pricing on the pricing table, you can do that. So on the settings and support sheet, I'm going to go down to the sheet settings section, or I'll click on this link up here in row 2 for sheet settings. Down here under pricing, there's this new input for what do I do when I'm loading customer data? How do I handle pricing? The new default is going to be load original pricing for the customer, so that the main pricing table is exactly as it was when I saved that customer. But if I prefer, I can say reset to current pricing defaults to always have the latest and greatest, most up-to-date, most accurate when I load that customer. Or if I want to just do nothing on the pricing sheet, I'll just click don't load or reset. So I'd probably start, my workflow would probably be, if I put out a quote before, I'd probably want to load the pricing table as it was when I saved the customer, just to see exactly what I was assuming for the pricing back then. And then from there, I might go to the pricing sheet and just click reset main pricing table once I've reviewed that to see my new pricing and how that applies to that customer, how it affects their IRR. So that would be my approach if I put out a quote a while back for somebody, and a few months later or whatnot, they've decided to go forward with the project, if I needed to get them new pricing. Thanks. Bye.